Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating clash. We're looking at the intense friction between human psychology, the messy stuff in our heads, and hard, unyielding economic data.
So think about it for a second. Is wealth a hard science or is it a soft skill? I mean, does your financial success rely on math and physics, or does it actually come down to emotional discipline?
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, mind over money. Then, biases and mental accounting. Third, the identity of spending. Next, technical economics. And finally, balancing skills. Let's get right into it.
The author Morgan Housel really hits the nail on the head here. He says, financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill, where how you behave is more important than what you know. That's a pretty bold statement, right?
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Mind over Money and Biases.
Look at this number. Data actually shows that everyday investors consistently underperform their very own funds by about 1 to 3% every single year. So why does that happen? Well, it's human behavior. We panic sell when things look scary, and we emotionally buy when everyone else is making money.
The renowned behavioral economist Richard Thaler calls this phenomenon mental accounting. Basically, we irrationally divide our money up into these subjective, imaginary buckets in our minds. Because of this, we end up changing how we value the exact same amount of cash depending entirely on the context.
To put that into perspective, think about this classic example. You'd probably be willing to drive 20 extra minutes just to save $5 on a $15 item, right? But you'd almost never do that to save $5 on a $125 item. $5 is $5, but suddenly the context overrides the math.
Then there's confirmation bias. This sneaky little bias makes you actively hunt for news that proves your investments are genius, leaving you totally off guard when things go south. The best countermeasure? You've got to red team your own beliefs. Actively go out and seek the absolute best negative case against your own portfolio. It is absolutely crucial for protecting your wealth.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Identity of Spending.
So research has identified these deeply ingrained money scripts that we all have. On one hand, you have money status, which ties your self-worth directly to external displays of wealth, really needing that approval. On the other hand, there's money vigilance, which is this overly cautious, anxious, fearful approach to hoarding and saving your money.
And this leads us perfectly to what's known as the man-in-the-car paradox. Think about it. When you see someone driving a flashy luxury car, you don't actually admire the driver. You just imagine yourself in that driver's seat, being admired by others. It's a total illusion. The reality is, outward displays of wealth rarely buy genuine respect from anyone.
Honestly, your bank statements act like a mirror to your psychology. Studies show that highly neurotic people actually tend to spend less on their mortgages because of underlying anxiety. Meanwhile, folks who score high in openness, they're statistically way more likely to give their money to charity.
All right, shifting gears a bit for Section 3, Technical Economics, focusing on algae biofuels.
Now, I want you to compare all that messy human emotion we just talked about to this hard data on algae biofuel pricing. When you look at things like operating expenses, nutrient costs, and CO2 requirements, wow. This is a harsh, completely objective reality. There is literally zero room for human bias here. Here, we're looking at a pure, unyielding science trade-off. Open ponds are economically efficient and have lower capital costs, but they're completely constrained by strict biological limits on productivity. Closed photobioreactors, on the other hand, yield a lot more, but they are significantly more expensive and just can't compete on cost right now. It's a literal battle of capital cost versus biological output.
And what's the result of all that math? An unyielding, rock-solid baseline of 2.2 euros per liter for lipid extraction. The commodity market doesn't care about your ego, it doesn't have money scripts, and it certainly doesn't panic. It only answers to rigid metrics and yield.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, Balancing Soft and Hard Skills.
To bridge this massive gap between emotional finance and rigid economics, we really have to acknowledge our blind spots. As Housel points out, we tend to cling to these comforting little fictions. Why? Because the illusion of control is just so much more persuasive and comforting than the terrifying reality of uncertainty.
So, what are our big takeaways here? First, true wealth is often totally invisible. It's the money you don't spend. Second, always cultivate a wide room for error in your planning. Third, Recognize that illusion of control in financial markets for what it really is. And finally, red team your beliefs to protect your hard-earned returns.
I'll leave you with this one final provocative thought. Take a good, hard look at your own investments. Are you managing your money with objective, hard science? Or is your psychology secretly managing you? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.